Hey, what's going on, everybody? Samuel Akem here, and I'm back with another one. Appreciate you guys for tapping into yet another Akem'S analysis. From first downs to forever, if you met your girl tailgating or cheering under those Friday night lights, L&M Fine Jewelry is your next winning play. Engagement rings, custom designs, and timeless Montana craftsmanship. Because your love story deserves a ring as legendary as your team. Located on American Way in Missoula and Main Street in Kalispell. Please go check out L&M Fine Jewelry. They are one of the sponsors for Akem's Analysis and my channel, Samuel Akem, this season. I'm very excited to be working with them. As you guys know, I mention it all the time. They got my wife and myself our engagement rings, or I guess my wedding band, her engagement ring. And they were with us all along the way. So go check them out. They got a location that's opened up in the last year in Kalispell on Main Street, as well as their main location in Missoula on American Way. You guys definitely need to go check them out if you're looking at buying a ring for that special person. Go there, see about them, let them take care of you guys. I got a really, really good video for you guys today. I went to the first Grizz practice yesterday. Today is Sunday. Saturday was their first practice. I checked it out. I took some notes. So we're going to talk about it. They also dropped the Stats Perform FCS Top 25 poll. I dropped my video on Monday last week. They dropped the poll on Monday. So we are going to talk about that and give our thoughts about that. There's been a lot of chatter about week 0 and it gaining traction and becoming FCS week with the added game. That makes the most sense for a lot of FCS teams to play that 12th game. So week 0 is going to be a big week going forward. And I got some thoughts about that I want to ask you guys. Kent Haslem released a statement talking to the fans of the University of Montana. If you're an alum or if you're somebody who's donated to the University of Montana, I'm sure you probably saw this statement. I know I saw it because I got it over email, but he dropped a statement. Somebody asked a question: how far do you think an all-pro FCS team would make it in the FBS? And I want to talk about it. It sounds pretty interesting, and I want to give my thoughts about potentially putting together an FCS all-pro team. One of my fans, one of my more attentive listeners and followers of the channel, subscribers, asked the average starting O-line and D-line for former national championship teams as a gauge to see where some of these teams who may be on the cusp need to get to. So I got 2 previous national champions, recent national champions, and then I got one who could be on the cusp of potentially getting there and seeing what the averages are. What is South Dakota State's most likely record after its first 2 games? They play Sac State and Montana State to open up the season. 2 Big Sky teams. Obviously, we're Skyline Sports, so we cover the Big Sky with a fine-tooth comb. And so we're going to answer that. We're going to look at what that was a Sam Herder question. We're going to look at what the people voted on and what they think their most likely record will be. And then the Ivy League dropped their preseason poll, so we're going to talk about Ivy League and their playoff eligibility for the 2025 FCS playoffs. Very, very exciting. Please make sure you guys hit the like. Please make sure you guys hit the subscribe button. Please make sure you guys leave me a comment down below. The channel is growing fast and furious. We got a ton of content planned for the football season. Breakdowns, shorts. We're doing some interactive content this year as well with some of the fans at the University of Montana. So I'm really, really excited about what we got going on for this season. I'm really, really excited to bring it to you guys. More than anything, this channel is about analysis. We're looking at the games. We're getting into the X's and O's. So you guys know how we do. But I appreciate you guys for tapping in. So please hit the like, subscribe, and leave me a comment down below. And we will get straight into it. Okay. The University of Montana had their first practice for the 2025 football season. They had they opened up fall training camp. A lot of thoughts. Obviously, they were in shirts and shorts and helmets, so you're not going to be able to see the full gauge of what this team is going to be based on shirts and shorts. But obviously, we got to see the quarterbacks. The quarterback situation is something that people are tapped into a lot. So I'll give my thoughts about the quarterback position. I also got a pretty good idea of who I think the starters are going to be. Now, obviously, these things are subject to change, but I think we got to start an 11 on offense. I think we got to start an 11 on defense, or a good idea of that. And then obviously you got to see the guys run around, see who looks good, who doesn't look good. Some young guys on offense, we'll talk about it all. So first things first, the quarterback situation. Kali Ayat was obviously the first quarterback to run out there with their ones, but they cycled through all the quarterbacks. So Luke Flowers got a ton of burn. Jake Jensen got a ton of burn as well. let me pull up my notes right here as before we get too much into this. But Jake Jensen, Luke Flowers, as well as Callie Ayat. If I was giving a grade on the quarterbacks personally myself, and obviously this is the first day, they're in shirts and shorts. I mean, all the things. So let me forewarn you with that. But I personally thought Luke Flowers was the quarterback who looked the best. Ayat struggled on some deep passes during the practice, so that was something that Montana kind of struggled on as a team last year. Fife was probably a little better at hitting the deep ball, but they weren't particularly successful with any quarterback hitting the deep ball. So this isn't necessarily an indictment on Ayat, but it is something that as fans and people who pay attention to University of Montana football, you would love to see them improve on completing deep passes. Now, obviously, like I said, it's the first day. The hope is that obviously these guys have been working together all summer. But from what I saw, without getting too much into schematics or anything like that, I personally thought Luke Flowers looked the best. And I remember during the spring game, if you guys watched my spring game reaction, I thought Luke Flowers not even shined, but like I thought he flashed the most to me during training camp, during that spring game. I thought Luke Flowers was the one who seemed to operate the offense the best. Obviously, he's the Rigby, Idaho quarterback. I think he's a redshirt freshman. He's a redshirt freshman, going to be a redshirt freshman this year. You got a redshirt sophomore in Ayat, and then you got a redshirt senior in Jensen. So an older guy in the room, and then you got Ayat. Then you got Ayat and Flowers. And I thought Flowers looked the best. Out of the top three, if I had to rank where I thought the quarterbacks and how I thought the quarterbacks performed on the first day, I thought it was Flowers at number 1 for me. I thought it was Jensen at number 2 for me. And then I thought it was Ayat at number 3. And honestly, I don't think there's a big gap between Ayat and Jensen on that day 1. But that's just my personal opinion. Now, obviously, I believe that seeing Ayat run out there first, I feel like, Hauck would never say this. Coach Pease would never say this. The coaching staff of the University of Montana would never say this. But personally, I feel like it's Ayat's job to lose. I feel like they're kind of giving him the job, like seeing him run out there first with the ones in the offense, the one offensive line, the one receivers. I feel like it's his job to lose. Now, obviously, they have their own thing that they do at Montana. The coaches staff has their own thing they do. But if I was giving my opinion on it, if I was giving my take on it, I feel like they're kind of giving Ayat the job and letting obviously everybody's going to get reps and everybody's going to get an opportunity. But I feel like the only way Ayat does not start week 1 or week 2 is if if he overwhelmingly looks like he's not the starting quarterback. Like if it's too hard not to put Jensen or Flowers in there, I feel like that's when Ayat's not going to be the starter. But I feel like if he does a decent enough job in training camp, completing passes, running the offense efficiently, Ayat's going to be the starter. And I mean, granted, Ayat is the only guy who's returning in the quarterback room that has starting experience in this offense. So from that standpoint, I think he has a leg up on the other guys. But if I was grading day one, I would put Flowers, Jensen, then Ayat. And that's not to say that Ayat had a bad day. Ayat was completing passes efficiently, but it's just when they start to get in that downfield game. There was a couple of times when he had a receiver who had a step and he necessarily didn't complete it, tried to go back shoulder on one of them, tried to go over the top on another one. He was long on one. I think he actually threw an interception on a scramble move where it was a weird play. I think they had blown the whistle, or the defense got in the backfield. Ayat scrambled out. He ended up throwing an interception. So not a great look on day one, but like I mentioned, it's the first day. You expect, as a coach, as people paying attention, you should expect to see some choppy football. Not even choppy football, but just like, it's not going to be dialed on day one. Don't expect it to be dialed on day one, because it's not going to be. So you got to temper your expectations when going to a first day practice of training camp. But they still got a lot of room to grow. Obviously, they don't have a ton of time. There's only a month before the first game of the season. So, you want to start, and that's what Coach Hauck mentioned in his press when he talked to the media before practice. He mentioned that, we are locked in on week 2. We are locked in on Central Washington. I believe that's who they opened the season with. We're locked in on our first opponent, and everything that we do from now until then is preparing us for that opponent. So, got to get this situation figured out. Another thing I wanted to mention, Elijah Tolbert, the linebacker, the new linebacker, I believe he's an Army transfer. One of those military school transfers. I believe it's Army. He looked really good. I thought he looked good. He was in that starting defense, who I think is the starting defense. Obviously, the coaching staff hasn't come out and said these are our starters. They won 1s, 2s, and 3s, based on me being at practice, me having played on this team before, me understanding how they do things, that is who I believe that starting off defense was. And I'll get into that lineup in a minute. But I thought Tolbert looked really good. He had a lot of energy at practice. He was getting into the backfield. He was bringing the juice on the defense. And from looking at the starting defense, looking at them, when you're at practice, they don't look the projected starting. We'll say projected starting defense, but looking at who I think the projected starting defense was going to be, looking at them on the field, they don't look like the biggest unit. I believe it's a unit that's going to have to play together a lot. They're going to have to play together. They're going to have to be in lockstep. I think one of the things that hurt the defense last year, and something that Colter Nuanez, myself, a lot of people in the media who pay attention to this team have mentioned, is that the defense just looked out of sorts last year. 2023, you have top 3 defense in the nation, points, stops, all that stuff. I mean, they were a very, very good defense. And then contrast that, you bring not all of those pieces, but a lot of pieces from that 2023 team had either been underclassmen or they were there. They were around. They did bring in a lot of transfers, but there were quite a few guys who were around and understood the system in 2023 who were there in 2024. And the unit looks completely different. They couldn't get stops. They were giving up a ton of points to subpar opponents. They gave up almost 50 to Eastern Washington. They gave up 50 to Weber State, 2 of the bottom tier teams in the conference. So what you're going to need to see from this defense this year is a unit that plays together, a unit that understands the scheme, a unit that understands, like, okay, if I'm going to close out this gap, I need to be able to trust that the guy behind me is going to fill their lane, so that we're not overrunning things, we're not missing tackles, because there was a lot of missed tackles last year, just a lot of inconsistencies in that defense. And there was never a time, I would say, last year where I saw the defense and thought, oh, this unit resembles the unit from 23. No, it was day and night to me. It wasn't even close. So from that standpoint, it was exciting to see Tolbert bring the energy, but I think the unit's going to have to play together. The D-line, I don't think is going to be very, very big. I mean, I think it's hard when you think about a guy like Alex Gubner and what he meant for the Montana defense in 2023. You always once you know what that looks like and you know what the success of that is, you want that back. I mean, Pat Hayden last year, great player, not Alex Gubner. And I'm not even trying to shit on Pat Hayden or anything like that, but Gubner is Gubner for a reason. He was a 1 of 1. So now I think Jared Ramos is the guy who's mostly going to play that nose position that Gubner played. Will he be Gubner? I don't know. I thought Ramos looked a little bigger yesterday. I thought he looked like he had put on some weight. He looks good. Obviously, he's going to have to anchor that defense in the middle. You want to see what he can do. And it was kind of hard. It's hard with the D-line and the O-line to really judge them in the shirts and shorts, because so much of what they do is contact, and you can only fairly judge contact when they're in the pads. So I don't feel like it's right to necessarily give a good judgment on them. But, yeah, I'm interested to see what we can see from the defense. Nobody on the defense really stood out to me outside of Tolbert when I'm looking at some of these guys on this unit. So we can just go ahead and talk about who I think the projected starting defense is. Based on what I saw at practice yesterday, I think you're looking at Tolbert at linebacker. You're looking at Gino at linebacker. I think you're looking at Otlewski at linebacker edge. In terms of the safeties, I think you got Roush, Wolf, and Wilkinson at safety position. At D-line, you got Jared Ramos, Mason, and Mata Afa. I didn't put their first names on here. It was kind of during practice. I was trying to go fast, so I'm seeing the guy, put the name on there, go to the next. So anyway, Mata Afa, Ramos, and Mason at D-tackle. And then at cornerback, you got Keon Loud, and you got Kenzel Lawler. So, I mean, you're starting to see the makings of the full unit right there. Linebackers, Tolbert, Leonard, Otlewski at linebacker edge. I think that's probably... If I had to guess what would be the best unit this season on this defense, I think it's probably going to be the linebackers. Tolbert, Leonard, a guy who, I went back and watched some film from the 2024 season, and Leonard got in, Gino got in a little bit, Leonard got in a little bit. And one thing I noticed was, man, he was bringing a lot of energy. He got in sparingly throughout the game against Montana State, and that's the game I'm really referencing. And I liked what I saw from Gino. Gino is one of those guys who is a young guy. He's a Missoula guy, has dealt with some, I don't know if I would say disciplinary injuries, but, he hasn't been able to get on the field for whatever reason it is. Now he's getting his opportunity. He got a little bit of his opportunity last year. I think he's a guy who could really blow up in this offense. You know, he plays hard. He's a smart kid. He knows the defense. He knows the scheme. He knows what they're trying to do. So if you're trying to bring a level of consistency to this defense, I mean, the media talks about it all the time. There's only one player, Otluski, who has starting experience on this defense returning for this season. So that is a problem. You have to get that figured. I mean, you're not going to get starting experience without starting. A lot of these guys are going to be starting for the first time. Geno Leonard, although he doesn't have a ton of starting experience, I think he's somebody who can be a leveling force on this defense. And, you know, he's really the name that I look at outside of him and TJ Roush for guys who, you know, understand the system, who have been around for quite a while and understand what things going on. Actually, Roush and Leonard, I believe, were teammates at Sentinel in high school, if I'm not mistaken. But those are two of the guys that I think could really level things from a defensive perspective. But, you know, I think the defense has a lot of questions to answer. What is the secondary going to look like? Although they had a little bit of experience on that secondary last year, that was a unit that I thought really got tested last year and really got beat up. I mean, you think about that Weaver State game. You think about the Eastern Washington game. A lot of passing yardage being had on this defense last year, and for whatever reason, they just couldn't necessarily get it figured out when they needed to. So, yeah, man, defense exciting. A lot of new faces on the defense, but I'm excited to see what they're able to do now. Obviously, that is who I think the projected defense is going to be. The projected starting defense is going to be, but also understand, like, I believe this is going to be a unit where a lot of guys, like, there's going to be some staples on this defense. Like, I think maybe the line, like Leonard and Tolbert play a lot of snaps, but also you got to remember that Clay Oven, a linebacker on this defense, the legacy number, I believe he's going to play a lot of snaps as well. So I think, you know, with the linebacker units, I think maybe the secondary might be guys who kind of play more snaps consistently. But, you know, as it's been throughout Houck's whole tenure, this second tenure at the University of Montana, they're going to have a rotation of guys. So they're going to have a rotation of linebackers. They're going to have a rotation of safeties. They're going to have a rotation of D tackles, cornerbacks, all that. Like, people are going to rotate. Obviously, this could be the guys who start the game on the field, and when things get tight, these are the guys that you want to have on the field. But at the end of the day, a lot of guys are going to rotate. A lot of guys are going to play snaps. So understand that. This is who I think is going to be the projected starting defense. We honestly don't know. These coaches do their own thing, so we can see a different thing run out there in week 2. But this is who I think is going to be the starting defense. So you guys let me know what you think about that. And in terms of offense, this is who I gathered I think is going to be the starting offense. Ayat at quarterback, Bridges, Brooks, and Wortham at receiver. I think we'll see a lot of subbing in and out from Wortham. I mean, I think the receivers outside of Wortham, the receivers, Brooks and Bridges, are young guys as well. So, you know, I don't think they are going to play 100% of the snaps. I think there's going to be Bohannon is going to get in there. The transfer from Kennesaw State. What's the other guy's name? I'm blanking on the other receiver they brought. I think it's Weston out of like, what is it, Illinois, I think. But there's a couple of receivers that have some experience that one's a redshirt junior, one's a redshirt senior that have experience. I think those guys are going to get on the field as well. Also, we didn't get the opportunity to see Guernsey yesterday for whatever reason. So I think he's another guy who's going to play a lot of snaps as well. But yesterday, who I saw out there, Bridges, Brooks, and Wortham. But I do remember that Guernsey was a big piece in the offense during the spring. So I guarantee you that he's going to have a lot of burn in the offense as well this year. But Bridges, Brooks, Wortham at receiver. You got Schaefer, Evan Schaefer at the tight end position. At line, you got Matten. You got Freitas. Okay, so at right tackle, you got Matten. At right guard, you got Freitas. At center, you got Dylan Botner, the most veteran, I'd say the most veteran guy on that offensive line. At left guard, you got Liam Brown. And then at left tackle, you got Cannon Pamphilov. And then at tight end. So at tight end, I saw a lot of Josh Gale yesterday, but I mean, obviously Schaefer is the guy. And when you're running the ball primarily, I feel like you want Schaefer in there. I feel like Gale is going to be the primary receiving tight end. You know, I saw a lot of him yesterday. He caught some passes. He looked really good. He's not as big as Schaefer in terms of like size, but, you know, I think he can do a lot of things in the passing game. So Gale was there as well. And then obviously you got Eli Gilman at the running back position. You know he's going to be there. And then you saw also I got to see Malai Fanoti, not Fanati, Malai Fanoti. Got to see him yesterday as well. I thought he looked really good. But also there was a young running back. I put it in my notes. There was a young running back that I put down that I wanted to talk about. Gosh, where's he at? I can't remember his name. Oh yeah, Hakeem Jones. Now, this was only one play, but there was a play where he had a big time run off the left side of the offensive line, and he showed a little bit of burst. He's a dark skinned brother. I hadn't heard about this kid yet, but he looks good. He looks like he can do some things. We'll see what that running back room looks like. Obviously, you have Eli Gilman. Obviously, you have Malai Fanoti. Obviously, you have Stevie Rocker. But I think if there's a situation where a young guy can get up and get in the ranks and maybe travel this year, I think it would be Hakeem Jones could potentially make that travel roster this season. Excited to see him this year. There was a lot of things that went on. I mentioned Josh Gale. He made some plays. There was during the youth period late in the practice, one of the freshman DBs, Gentry, had an opportunity to make an interception. He dropped it. I cannot remember the quarterback who threw that pass. I think it was actually the freshman quarterback, number 19. I'm blanking on his name right now. But, I mean, it looked like the first day of practice would look. I honestly thought they were pretty dialed with things. There wasn't a lot of administrative errors or anything like that during practice. I think things ran pretty smoothly. The quarterbacks were able to operate the offense pretty smoothly. Obviously, the play and what the play looked like on the field was another thing, but I think they looked decent for first day of practice. So, yeah, okay. I went through the projected starting roster. I feel like Guernsey might be in there on that projected starting offensive roster, but we got an idea of who we might see run out there at first. Obviously, my main concern on the offensive side of things is the quarterback position and the offensive line position. I think this is a team that's going to need to lean on the run game this year. I think this is honestly a team that needs to lean on Eli Gilman this year. If I'm being very honest, and that's not even an indictment on the weapons that they have. They have weapons. There's going to be guys who emerge in this offense. There's going to be guys who make plays. I mean, if there's not guys who don't make plays, this isn't going to be a very good team. So, from the offensive standpoint, Eli Gilman is the weapon that you look at. I think you need to lean on him. Give him 20 to 25 carries a game. If not 20 to 25 carries a game, give him 20 to 25 touches a game. He needs to touch the ball often in this offense. He needs to be an integral part of this offense. I think Michael Wortham also needs to be an integral part of this offense. Got to see a little bit of the Wildcat yesterday. Obviously, that's something that Michael Wortham does well. That's something that that's something that he has done. That's something that he did at Eastern Washington. I don't know, as a Montana guy at the University of Montana, these coaching staff, I don't know why they wouldn't use that. So that's something I'm excited to see as well. But Eli Gilman needs to be the centerpiece of this offense. Needs to be Eli Gilman, the guy who gets the ball the most, the guy who's touching the ball often, the guy who people are like, dang, they're feeding him. Needs to be Eli Gilman. Feed him. Let him carry this offense as far as they're going to go. I think we could see a 1,500 plus yard rushing season from Eli Gilman. I also think we could see a plus 500 yard receiving season from Eli Gilman. Now, obviously, that's on the coaching staff to give him that many touches and to put him in the game plan that way. But, I think we need to see that. I think the fans want to see that. I think people who pay attention to this team understand how crucial he is to this offense. And give him the ball. So, that's what I thought of the first day of Montana's practice. Obviously, they're going to have a ton of more practices. I will not be at all the practices. So, I wanted to give my first day out thoughts. I thought they looked decent. I thought some people flashed. Got an idea of who I think the starters may be day one, but obviously we don't know. Day one, anything could happen. And obviously, if you know anything about Coach Houck, he likes to keep a rotation of guys. So there's going to be a lot of bodies. He likes to create depth at every position. So there's going to be people who can play throughout the 1, 2, and honestly probably the 3s of this. I mean, 1s and 2s. Let's say 1s and 2s. I don't know about the 3s, but there's going to be at least 1 or 2 guys that can play at each position, and they're going to be heavily evaluating them over these next 3 to 4 weeks. So you guys let me know what you guys think about Montana coming into fall camp. What are kind of your concerns? What are you worried about coming into fall camp? What do you think early on in training camp? If you were at practice, let me know. Leave some comments down below of what you thought about the first day of practice. But yeah, give me your thoughts in the comments and I will move on. Okay, we got the Stats Perform FCS Top 25 poll. Obviously, I am not a stats perform voter, so I don't get to vote on this poll. Unfortunately, I'm not that veteran of a media personality yet. So they don't care about what I think yet. So and it's okay. I don't feel any type of way about that. There's levels to this. I voted in the Big Sky Media poll for the first time this year, and that was great. It was freaking great. I feel like I'm officially media. Like, you see that poll, you see the final poll, and like, I was in there. I don't know. I just feel a great sense of pride about that. Anyway, the Stats Perform FCS Top 25 poll dropped, and there were 6 Big Sky teams in the poll. There were 3 Big Sky teams in the top 10. There were 5 Big Sky teams in the top 15. And it really shook out how you would expect it to shake out. I think a lot of these rankings are based on the finish of last season because we have no data. I mean, there's a lot of data and there's a lot of information about what these teams are going to be, but I mean, you don't really get a good idea of what these teams are going to be until they play. So preseason polls, put weight into them if you want to. They don't hold a lot of weight because I remember in 2021, obviously great accomplishment. We beat UW in 2021. It was amazing. They were the preseason 20th ranked team in the country, which is amazing. I think, not that there was a record, but I think that was like the first time that a top 25 team had lost to an FCS opponent. It was something. It was crazy. It was awesome. It was amazing. But that UW team ended up being absolutely dog. They sucked. They were not good. They were not a good team that year. I think they ended up firing their head coach mid-season or something like that. Like, they weren't good. So preseason polls hold value because they give people something to talk about, people like myself something to talk about, and they obviously give you an idea of where these teams are ranked. There's no rankings right now, so these are the rankings for the teams. MSU is coming into this season ranked number 1. Number 2, NDSU is going to be the consensus number 1 until they're beaten. And even after they're beaten, they may still be the number 1 depending on who they lose to. And you get the top 10. I mean, this is honestly where teams should be ranked, but take it with a grain of salt because it only can mean so much. Anyway, NDSU at 1, MSU at 2, South Dakota State at 3, South Dakota at 4, Incarnate Word at 5, Illinois State at 6. Not necessarily surprised at Illinois State at 6, but I believe they lost to UC Davis, so to see them above UC Davis when UC Davis has a lot of pieces returning. I think Illinois State also does, though. So Montana at 7, UC Davis at 8, Rhode Island at 9, Tarleton State at 10. And I'll say this while we're sitting at Tarleton State at number 10. I think one of the best things that can happen for not even the Big Sky. I think one of the best things that can happen for FCS football is the emergence of like Tarleton State, Abilene Christian, Eastern Kentucky. I mean, some of those teams out of that UAC, them emerging and becoming perennial winners and playoff teams is one of the best things that can happen for the FCS. There needs to be another conference that is going to challenge MVFC. Obviously, the Big Sky has been there and has been trying to challenge the MVFC. They haven't been successful. Tarleton State was able to, not even Tarleton State, but just the UAC was able to show that, they're on the cusp of becoming a conference that can compete with the best of the best. They showed that last year, getting 3 teams into the playoffs. I don't think anybody would have said that the UAC was going to get 3 teams into the playoff before the season last year. After the season, you're looking at the UAC and you're like, I didn't see that out of you, but I'm glad I was able to see that out of you. So you got Tarleton State at 10, Mercer at 11, Mercer and UC Davis. That'll be an 8-11 matchup to open up the season. Very excited to see that game. Cannot wait to see what UC Davis looks like. Cannot wait to see what these guys look like to open up the FCS season. It's going to be amazing. You got Mercer at 11, Idaho at 12, Villanova at 13, Lehigh at 14, Sac State at 15. Sac State's honestly kind of high. When you look at a lot of these teams in these rankings, like they're all plus records. They all have positive records, like 7-5, 8-4. I mean, 9-10-4, 9-5, 11-3. I mean, all the teams have positive records. You look at Sac State, they're 3-9 and 1-7. So I think these rankings are based on where the teams were ranked. Basically, I feel like the rankings, the top 25 preseason poll, I feel like is heavily based on the previous season. Like what you did last year, you're most likely going to carry over. Like NDSU won the Natty, they're going to come in as the preseason number 1. MSU lost, they're going to come in as the number 2. I mean, SDSU, so on and so forth. The semifinal teams are the 3 and 4, so on and so forth. Some of the quarterfinal teams like Montana, UC Davis, Illinois State. Illinois State didn't make the quarterfinals. I think they made the second round. But you get what I'm trying to say. Like, it's going to go down that line, and then, there's going to be some outliers like Sac State. 3-9, 1-7. The sole reason Sac State is in this preseason top 25 poll is because of the recruiting, is because of what they brought in. They brought in a ton of talent. There's a lot of hype behind this Sac State team. They're ranked 15 in the preseason poll, and they need to go out and show somebody and prove something. They open up the season against South Dakota State. All eyes are going to be on Sac State and South Dakota State in week 1. All eyes. And they need to show up. They need to show the hell up because we want to know. We've been seeing all the talk. We've been seeing all the chatter. Dr. Luke Wood, their president, has been very vocal and loud about what he's got building at Sac State. And hey, if you got something building, if you're building a monster over there, we appreciate you. And we will give you your respect. But you got to show us. Because you say it's JV football. You say that we are playing JV right now. We're trying to get up to varsity. Y'all ain't even never won the JV championship. Y'all haven't even ever been the best team at JV, but you're going up to varsity. Brother, you got too much dip on your chip. And I might be getting a little bit too emotional about this, but you have to show it. So come week 1, you're the preseason 15th ranked team in the country for no other reason other than what you have done in terms of recruiting and bringing in talent during this offseason. A lot of people think you guys can do a lot of things. You brought in a good offensive-minded head coach who's never been a head coach before. First season as a head coach. We want to know, what is it going to be? Are you going to show us that you are the team to beat in the Big Sky? Are you going to show us that you deserve an opportunity, that you deserve a seat at the table? Because right now, we don't know. But Sac State at the number 15, ACU at 16, Jackson State at 17, Western Carolina at 18, NAU at 19. NAU was a playoff team. They were a bubble team. They were one of the last 4 teams to get into the playoff last year. And they showed us exactly why they were one of the last 4 teams to get into the playoff. NAU, good defensive team last year. Really leaned on their defense last year. Had a good running game. Had a good offensive line. Decent quarterback play. I mean, they played well at home. They won the games that they needed to win to get into the playoff. Once they got into the playoff, they completely laid an egg, figuratively and literally. They did not score a point in the playoff game against ACU. That game was on the road, but I think NAU could potentially be a dark horse this year. We will see. That's all I'm going to say about that. Southern Illinois at 20, Tennessee Tech at 21, Monmouth at 22, Stephen F. Austin at 23, Stony Brook at 24, and Richmond at 25. So that is the Stats Perform Top 25 preseason poll. Obviously, take it with a grain of salt. How many MVFC teams do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 MVFC teams. See, and that's always the wonder is like 1, 2, 3. Am I counting right? 4, 5. That's always the wonder with the Big Sky and the MVFC. It's like the Big Sky has more good teams in their conference usually, but they never can get, or even it's even. I don't want to say usually the Big Sky because the MVFC is king, but usually it's pretty even on how many good teams are in each conference. But the Big Sky teams can never get over that hump. They can never get to the top of the tippity top, and that needs to be solved sometime. I mean, not necessarily even the Big Sky, but somebody needs to be able to beat the MVFC. I want to see it, and I want to see it now. So you guys let me know what you guys think about the Stats Perform Top 25 poll. Do you guys think they got it right? I do. I don't really see a big problem with it. I mean, I don't really care about the Big Sky preseason poll. It doesn't hold a lot of weight. It doesn't tell us anything about what these teams are going to be. It doesn't tell us anything about the season. It doesn't give us any indication of anything. It's just something for us to look at, and it gives the team a number, a nice shiny number next to their name. And that number can be completely wiped away in the first week of the season if you guys don't take care of business. So preseason poll, here it is. Take it for what it's worth. We will move on. Okay. I mentioned in the lead up that there's been a lot of chatter and a lot of talk about Cat Grizz. Not even Cat Grizz. My question is about Cat Grizz. That's why I said Cat Grizz. But there's been a lot of talk about week 0 and FCS teams adding a week 0 opponent, because 12 games is now the standard at the FCS level. Teams are going to be playing 12 games, and a lot of teams are going to have to push that game into week 0. So week 0 is going to become FCS week. It's going to be I hope it becomes FCS week, but I hope it's a week where people can look at FCS football and understand how great FCS football is. I got a quote from Sam Herder, and then I want to ask my question, and then I'll get into the discussion about my question. Scheduling tidbit I can share, as week 0 essentially becomes the new FCS week 1 next year, plus the Big Sky adding a 9th conference game. The Big Sky plans to play conference games during that new opening week. Exciting! Outside of some previously scheduled non-conference week 0 games that they'll have to work around, so the typical Big Sky team schedule would look like conference game week 0, then 3 non-conference games, then 8 more conference games. Exciting. My question was, should Cat Grizz be played in week 0 going forward? A lot of people, I think I got like 20 to 25 comments. The resounding and the overall answer was no. People do not like that idea. I don't know why people don't like that idea, but people don't like that idea. I'm gonna be honest. There was a lot of Grizz fans, and I love my Grizz as an alum. Obviously, I love my Grizz as an alum. I'm a media member now, so I gotta be objective. I'm gonna be honest. Let me preface this with nothing. What I'm about to say doesn't come from what people said. This is just my opinion. I've just gathered this based on my own opinion. I feel like people don't want to play week 0 because they're a little scared. I feel like people are a little scared because you don't know what you are as a team. You don't know what MSU is as a team. Playing week 0 gives you no, like, first off, a lot of people did mention, like, one thing that makes the game great is the buildup. So I do agree with that. The buildup throughout the regular season is great. But something that Colton Nuanez has always talked about, and we've talked about in years past, is playing that game the last week of the season doesn't give your 2 best teams the opportunity to be maximized in their playoff seeding. When the number 1 and number 2 team in a conference play the last game of the season, one of them is unfortunately going to lose, and one of them unfortunately is going to get hurt in playoff seeding because of when that game is played. I know it's tradition for it to be played the last week of the season. I know that it becomes a pseudo Big Sky championship game a lot of years, and I love that. I think that they need championship games in FCS football. I would love to play conference championship games in FCS football, but I think there's a lot of negatives that get put on teams by playing that game in the last week of the season. Now, if you disagree with week 0 because of, we don't know what they look like yet, like, we probably shouldn't play them week 0, like, we need at least a couple of weeks, I agree with that. Do it like the marker game is played then. Play it like week 4, week 5, like, play it mid-season. I think an end of the season game is dangerous. Now, obviously, it's become tradition in Montana, so you're going to be hard pressed to see that game be moved from the last week of the season. Even as I'm sitting here now, I don't think there's ever a world where that game is not played in the last week of the season. I think it's just set in stone at this point. But in a perfect world, I would love to see that game be played in week 0. Why not? Why not? I mean, come on, man. You don't know what they are, and just think about it. The first game of the season. Week 0, that game, imagine this. People always want that game to be televised. I think you're much more likely to get Cat Grizz televised in week 0 than you are in week 13, 12, whenever it's played. 100%. 100%. I mean, just think about all the problems the Grizz always run into in trying to get that game. Like, they're always trying to get game day to come to Cat Grizz, which I don't know why you wouldn't, as game day crew, why you wouldn't come to Cat Grizz every year. It is the best FCS rivalry game in the country. The marker is a close second, but I would take Cat Grizz. Obviously, I'm biased. I played in the game, so I'm biased, but I think it's the best FCS rivalry game in the country. And I think that's a game that game day should put on their schedule every year to come check it out. But I think you're much more likely to get that game on national television, on ESPN, in week 0 than you are in week 13, week 14, whenever it is. Just because of the timing, just because that is considered FCS week, that is the college football opener. A lot of times you get a premium slot for an FCS team, an FCS game that week. I think that could become the new Cat Grizz week. Now, You don't like that idea. I get it. There was a comment underneath the comments from Connor Ballantyne. He said, Battle for the Little Brown Stein would be the perfect match. Showcases two of the best stadiums in FCS and doesn't disrupt the in-state rivalry games for each. I like the Cat Grizz idea, but I honestly like the Idaho idea a little better. Idaho, Montana, week 0? Yes! The Kibby Dome, Washington Grizzly, every other year. National televised game, week 0, rivalry, it matters, it's a trophy game. I love it. I love this idea. I love Tom Wistersill, Ken Haslem, I don't know the AD at Idaho, get it done. Get it done. We need a week 0 Little Brown Stein game. I mean, we need it. I need it. I love this idea. Yes, Connor Ballantyne. Yes, great idea. Little Brown Stein. It keeps the in-state rivalries where they're at. Last week of the season. If you want it the last week of the season, you can have it the last week of the season. But give us something. It really seems like there's no rhyme or reason to when and where the Idaho-Montana games takes place. It could take place late in the season. It could take place mid-season. This year, it's the first conference game of the season for Montana, if I'm not mistaken. It doesn't seem like it matters where that game is. So if it doesn't matter when that game is played, play it week 0. Going forward, we should expect you're going to see Idaho the first week of the season, and you're going to see Montana State the last week of the season. You know when your rivalry games are played, those are going to be the annual opponents from. I think those are going to be 2 of the annual opponents from Montana anyway. Idaho, Montana State, Portland State. I don't know why it's Portland State. Should be Eastern Washington, but Portland State. Let Idaho and Montana duke it out in week 0. I don't know what they look like. They don't know what we look like. Let's duke it out. Let's duke it out. I love that. Also, another comment. I didn't put who this comment was by, and I apologize to you. If you remember, leave a comment. Let us know that this was you. Need cold weather, snow, and now the Cats don't suck as much before. That game means a lot more than in the last game of the season. So really, the last part of this tweet, the Cats don't suck as much and all that stuff. Like, I wasn't really hanging on to that piece. Sorry for all my Cat fan listeners. But the cold weather snow. Somebody had said that Cat Grizz is meant to, and honestly, I should have put on the different comment, but somebody had said Cat Grizz needs to be played in the snow. Cat Grizz needs to be played in the cold weather. I agree. I 100% agree. I mean, I agree. I cannot argue with you. That is a cold weather game. I love the buildup of the game. It was an idea to put it week 0, but honestly, reading the comments and listening to what people had to say, you guys convinced me otherwise. I still do believe that an end of the season game is not ideal for both teams. If you want the most optimal playoff seeding, I don't think an end of the season game is right for Cat Grizz. I think maybe a week 9, week 8, because it gives you a couple of weeks to bounce back as a squad. But I don't think an end of the season game. But I do agree that Cat Grizz is best played in -20, 10 degrees, 30 degrees or below. Like, you can't play Cat Grizz and you can't play a Montana football game that is all Montana teams in the sun. You just can't. You just cannot. And I'd be hard pressed to find somebody that disagrees with that point. That is a great point. Cat Grizz is a cold weather football game. I 100% agree. You will not get any argument out of me of that. Now, a last week of the season game, I don't know, but a cold weather game, 100%. Now, Little Brown Stein, week 0, I'm with you. Sign me up. Where do I sign? I love it. I love it. I love it. But that was really my point. I wanted to see what you guys thought about the week 0. I love if week 0 becomes FCS week. That is going to be amazing. I want to see FCS football be showcased. People want to watch football. People want to watch college football. Around that time, that's when people are getting really, really antsy for football. There are some people that only watch college football. There's a lot of people that don't like NFL football. There's some people that only watch NFL football. They don't like college football. But for those people who are itching for college football, week 0 could be an opportunity for not only to give them their college football fix, but to also give FCS football the coverage and the shine and love that it deserves. It's a dying art. FCS football is a dying industry. Unfortunately, the talent level is being eradicated from the subdivision. So this is an opportunity to show some of the best and brightest in FCS football during that week 0. And, Some good matchups need to be placed in that week 0 slot. I would really love some really good matchups to be placed there, like maybe like an NDSU South Dakota, or maybe like an India, because I think NDSU South Dakota State, if they wanted to do that week 0, people would love that, but I don't think they're going to do that either. That's their biggest rivalry game. That's the most important. They probably don't want to play that week 0. But NDSU South Dakota, I could see that. Maybe an NDSU North Dakota, I could see that. Those could be some interesting matchups in terms of the Big Sky Conference. You can put UC Davis Sac State, but maybe like a Montana State Eastern Washington game week 1, as well as a Montana Idaho game week 1. I mean, there could be some really good matchups in there. So people in power, think about that and get back to us with what you think. You guys let me know what you guys think about that in the comments, and I will move on. Okay, Mr. Kent Haslem, the AD at the University of Montana, sent a message to the fans talking about opting into the House settlement. I'm not going to read the entire statement, but I did have one paragraph out of the statement that I wanted to hang on to and give a few thoughts to. The University of Montana did opt into the changes set forth by the settlement. In simple terms, opting in allows us to share revenue with student athletes and process name, image, and likeness donations in-house, which means the good old Grizzlies collective will move into the athletic department. I think there is a big answer in there with that statement, just right there. We are committed to sharing revenue with our student athletes and will accomplish this through a number of new revenue generating initiatives along with support from donors. So first off, I would love to know what those new revenue generating initiatives are. I'm sure that's something that they're collabing with Marcus, the new chief revenue officer at the University of Montana, assistant athletic director there. One thing that's very interesting, man, is you can be general manager of the collective and then get an administrative job and be an assistant athletic director just like that. I mean, it's crazy. I think we do get an answer here, though, that, obviously the collective and the University of Montana have basically merged. The collective is a part of the University of Montana now. They no longer need the collective, which I don't know, based on some of the things that I was seeing, and obviously this is probably not a consideration at FCS football. It definitely isn't a consideration at Power 5 football, but you have an opportunity with some of the rulings that have come down at the FBS Power 5 level. The collectives still hold value. Those guys can still send out money. Those guys can still send out deals along with the house settlement and the rev share money that's coming in through the university. The collectives can still send out money. Now, there's not that much money swimming around at FCS football. All the money that you got coming in needs to be within the athletic department. So I think that's probably the thinking in merging the collective with the athletic department is like, any money that they're getting, we need to be able to pay the players, to pay the athletes. So we just need to bring the collective in-house. Let's just go ahead and hire the general manager, make him a position at the university, and that's how we'll move things forward. So basically, that's what you just saw when they hired Marcus Wellnell as the chief revenue officer at the University of Montana Athletic Department. They were basically merging the collectives into two. So Kent Haslem basically spoke on that. Wanted to give my thoughts about that. We will see how the changes affect the university as we go forward. Obviously, we're very new into this new landscape, but I think it's going to be exciting changes coming to the University of Montana, and I'm excited to see what they bring. You guys let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section down below, and I will move on. Okay, I got a hypothetical question here that I wanted to bring up. How far do you think an all-pro FCS team makes it in the FBS? So imagine you take the best of the best. So you take the top NDSU teams, the top Big Sky teams. You pick the best talent off of each FCS team and put together one juggernaut squad. So Cam Miller, Mark Gronowski, Tommy Mellott, the three quarterbacks. You got an emergency out of one of those. You got Isaiah Davis at running back, maybe an Eli Gilman at running back. Noah, and this is not an indictment to Eli. He might not even make the cut. If you're making an all-star squad, you got to take the best and the brightest. Eli Gilman might be on practice squad currently, where he sits currently. That is not to say that he can't get on the top of this list, but if you were to put together an all-star squad, take the best and the brightest. I'm not even going to say names because I don't want to make anybody feel any type of way, but take the best and the brightest from the FCS and you put a squad together. How far does that squad make it in the FBS? I think that squad can at least make it to the college football playoff. Am I wrong for saying that? I think they could. I think they could definitely make it to the college football playoff. You put together an all-star FCS squad. Now, how far they make it in the college football playoff, that's a different discussion. I don't know. Maybe they get a victory. Maybe they don't. Maybe they get dog walked. I don't know. But I think they could definitely at least make the college football playoff. Maybe they can make the college football playoff. I think that is the bar. I think and I think that's minimum. I mean, there have been some very, very good FCS squads, and top tier FCS talent is above average FBS talent. I think more than above average FCS talent. FBS talent. I was trying to think of a good term to where I would put top tier. Top tier FCS talent is just the floor for the elite talent in FBS football. Like they're at the floor. So like if there's a floor level, if there's elite talent, and this is the floor, this is the top for elite talent. The top tier FCS talent is at minimum at the floor of the elite talent in the FBS. I know that's a weird way to describe that, but I think you guys can kind of gather what I'm saying. Like the best of the best in the FCS is not far off from the best of the best in the FBS, but there's just so more few of them in the FCS. There's just fewer of them in the FCS that you get what you get with the FCS. But if you put all of the best in the FCS together, I think you put together a pretty damn good FBS squad. What do you guys think? It was just a quick topic that I wanted to get off my chest. I wanted to give my thoughts. I think that an all-star FCS team, an all-pro FCS team can definitely make some noise in the FBS. You guys let me know in the comments what you think, and I will move on. Okay, this discussion comes by way of a topic that was brought up by a listener of the channel, a very active listener, I might add. Thank you so much for your support of the channel. I appreciate you a ton. I appreciate you giving me something to talk about. But he said average size of starting O-line and D-line for former national championship teams. Now, I'm going to be using Montana's offense and D-line average projected starting offensive and defensive line this year because that's the line I know. But then we're looking at NDSU's offensive line and D-line from 2024 and SDSU's offensive line and D-line from 2023. What are their average weights, sizes of those offensive lines in order to get a gauge of where you need to be sitting at in order to be able to sit at the table with these guys? And obviously, average weight doesn't mean jack diddly, because I'm sure in some of the SoCon and some of those Southern conferences, there's some big boys down there. And I'm sure their average offensive line and D-line weight-wise is probably bigger. So just like with any data set, obviously, you can gather some information from this data, but the data doesn't tell the whole story because obviously there are reasons for why the data is what it is. So understand that. Although, anyway, with that in mind, I completely stumbled over my words. With that in mind, though, I think you can still get an understanding of where a team should be sitting at in order to, be able to have a chance, in order to have a chance. So NDSU's starting O-line average from 2024 was 303 pounds. Their defensive line was 264.75 pounds. South Dakota State's average starting O-line in 2023 was 306 pounds. Their average starting defensive line, their weight was 267 pounds. So I think, 303, 306 on O-line for 23 and 24 for NDSU and SDSU, and 267 and 264 for their average D-line, respectively. For Montana's 2025 average, their O-line average sits at 302.6, so right under that 303 of NDSU in 2024. And then their D-line is almost 10 pounds lower than SDSU's 2023 D-line. They're at 257.3. Mind you, Montana were only gauging 3 linemen in that system, D linemen in that system, and with NDSU and SDSU both had 4 defensive linemen running 4-3, 4-2-5 systems at their respective schools, opposed to Montana running a 3-3-5 system, so they only have 3 down linemen and an edge rusher linebacker that's usually stood up. But 257 there, 302 for their offensive line. I think they're right there in terms of average starting weight. But also this gives you an idea in terms of Montana. We're only looking at Montana here. We could obviously look at every other school, but we don't necessarily have depth charts for every other school. We could take their whole offensive line and average out the weight for their whole offensive line. I don't want to do that. I apologize. But once we get depth charts, we can look at this data for every other team, but at that point, games will be being played, and we'll have all other things to talk about. So this won't even really matter at that point because we will have football. But for this discussion in itself, I think Montana is there on the offensive line. Now, being there weight wise and average size wise is one thing. Being able to put it together and play as a unit and be able to get those guys to do what you need them to do is a completely other thing. And that's where I think the question marks lie for most teams when it comes to being able to beat the elite in the FCS. Is yes, you might be there size wise. Yes, you might be there talent wise, but can you put it together? Can the team do it as a unit? Can they make it happen when it matters the most? That is where the question marks come in. But if you're looking at average lines for most teams, I mean, Montana sits there. I'm sure if Montana is there looking at Montana State's units, I'm sure Montana State's units are right there as well. There's a reason why Montana State was there last year in the discussion. So, I think all of them kind of fall on that same spectrum. I think a lot of the teams that are probably in the top 15, top 25 are probably around these numbers. Maybe not top 25. I'd say probably the top 10 teams are probably around this number on offensive line and defensive line. It's really the coaching and the schematics and the execution that it comes down to for most teams. But you guys let me know what you guys think about this in the comments down below, and I will move on. What is South Dakota State's most likely record after its first 2 games? Sam Herter asked to the fans and followers of his channel on Twitter. Versus Sac State in week 1, at Montana State in week 2. 2-0. 32% of the people, there was like 1,500 votes. 32% of the people think they're going to be 2-0. 58% of the people think they're going to be 1-1, and 10% of the people think they're going to go 0-2. I am probably on the same time as most people at 1-1. I don't really see South Dakota State. I mean, they could. They very well could. They have a culture. They got talent there. They've been recruiting. Obviously, they lost a lot of talent, but they have a culture that's set in place there. I think that they go 1-1 more likely than they go 2-0, and way more likely than they go 0-2. I think the chance that they go 0-2 is slim to none. Now, if they go 0-2, we are going to be having a whole different discussion. But if I had to guess, obviously I bet on Sac State this season, but if I had to guess, I'd probably say SDSU goes 1-1, and I would guess it's probably the Montana State is going to beat South Dakota State, and that Sac State is probably going to lose to South Dakota State. Now, obviously, I am the one voter for Sac State to win the Big Sky Conference. Obviously, I think very highly of them. Obviously, I think that they're going to be a good team. I would, based on what I've seen talent-wise, I think they can be a good team. Will they be a good team is a different discussion. I got to be honest, though. If I had to tell you who I thought would win that game and who I thought would lose that game, I would definitely think Montana State would probably win against South Dakota State, and Sac State would probably lose against South Dakota State. That's just my thoughts right now. Obviously, the game is going to be played on Saturdays. The games are going to be played on television, and we're going to be able to judge that for what it is with the play on the field, and we got to wait for that. But if I had to tell you what I think, I would definitely guess that they would probably go 1-1, and that would probably be Montana State getting that one on South Dakota State. But it's interesting to think to see that a majority of people think they are going to go 1-1. I would be interested to know who people think they are going to lose to and who they're going to beat. But it's very interesting because South Dakota State has been a wagon the last few years. And they haven't lost a ton of football. Now, obviously, Mark Gronowski was there. Chase Mason, will he be Mark Gronowski? I don't think so. But the jury is still out. We're yet to see. We're yet to see. We got to see what he's gonna be. But it's gonna be very interesting to see what they're able to do. So, just a quick topic I wanted to touch on real quick. You guys let me know what you guys think. What Sac State's or South Dakota State's most likely record after the first 2 games is. If they're 0-2. The world is going to stop. The world's going to freeze over. Not really, because they're not really, it's not like they're that great that them going 0-2 is that crazy. But it will be something to look at because they have been a staple the last few years. They've been in the national championship picture. They've been in the semifinals consistently. So it's going to be interesting if they do end up being 0-2. You guys let me know what you think about that in the comments down below, and I will move on. Okay, last topic of the day. We are talking about Ivy League football. They dropped their preseason poll for the 2025 season. Obviously, the Ivy League is playoff eligible this year, and a lot of eyes are going to be on the Ivy League for the 2025 season. I'm looking up the Ivy League 2024 record right here, and I got it pulled up. But first things first, the Ivy League preseason poll. Harvard was voted as the preseason number. The team picked to finish number 1 in the conference was Harvard, meaning the team that people think is going to make the playoffs out of the Ivy League is Harvard, because there is now an automatic qualifying bid for the number 1 team out of that conference. Harvard would be that team to get that bid had they been playoff eligible. Who would have been the team to get that bid last year? Harvard would have been the team to get that bid last year had they made the playoffs. They finished the season 8-2. 5-2 in conference play. They tied actually with Dartmouth, who was 8-2, 5-2 in 5-2 in conference. Obviously, I don't know what the tiebreaker is in that conference, but whatever the tiebreaker is, that team would have gotten the automatic qualifying bid. At number 2, they got Dartmouth. Dartmouth was the number 2 finishing team last year. At number 3, you got Yale. Columbia finished number 2 in that conference, or Columbia finished number 3 in that conference. I just lost it now. Columbia finished number 3 in that conference last year. You got Columbia finished number 3. Yeah, you got Yale at 3. You got Columbia at 4. You got Princeton at 5. Penn at 6. Cornell at 7. And Brown at 8. So obviously Harvard, Dartmouth, Yale are the 3 teams that got first place votes. Harvard, Dartmouth, and Yale were top 4 teams in the conference last year. Cornell finished 5. Princeton finished 6. Penn finished 7. And Brown finished 8. The best team in that conference had an 8-2 record. I don't know if Ivy League teams are adding games this season, but I gotta guess that they're probably gonna start adding games in the coming years, 11, 12 games, with them playing playoff schedules. I actually want to let's look up Harvard's 2025 football schedule. I gotta guess that they're probably not playing a week 0 game this year, week 1 game this year. They might be though. No, yeah, their season doesn't start, at least for Harvard, until September 20th. So even after, I mean, they start way well into like week 3 or 4 into the season. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, they're playing 10 games this year. So they're still playing 10 games in the season. But I got to guess that that's probably going to start changing in the next couple of years. I would hope it would change. I mean, I don't know. Ivy League has done their thing for this long. They haven't been playoff eligible for this long. So who's to say that they're going to add 2 more games onto their schedule? We don't know. But I would love to see that. I would definitely love to see that. So we'll see. We'll see. I would love for Harvard or Dartmouth to come play Montana, or for Montana to go play Dartmouth or Harvard. Like, that would be amazing. Go to some of the East Coast, go to some of those East Coast schools and play that football. See what they do. I think the Ivy League, and now obviously they play less games, so their numbers I think are a little better at times. Like defensively, sometimes you might see an Ivy League school end up in the season be like a top 10, top 5 defensive squad. But one, they're only playing Ivy League football. They do play a couple of non-conference games. Like Harvard this year is playing Stetson, and they're also playing Holy Cross. But Holy Cross is in that region of the country. I think Stetson is more so like Florida, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember where Stetson might be Northeast. But either way, like, they're playing teams that are in their area or in that. I don't think they're ever playing FBS schools either, or they rarely play FBS schools. But that's something to be considered as well with some of these teams, is like, I completely lost my train of thought. I'm not going to lie. Anyway, Harvard, which Ivy League team makes the playoffs this season? Obviously, Harvard gets the preseason poll #1 vote. I think they're the easy pick to make the playoffs this year. But I'm just excited to see a Ivy League school make the playoffs. I'm just excited to see an Ivy League school be in the playoffs. I'm just excited to see what type of ball they play, man. I want to see an Ivy League, and who knows? Oh yeah, I was talking about the numbers of Ivy League schools. At times, they only play 10 games. At times, sometimes you may see one of those teams be in the top in the country in defense or points allowed or things like that. Like, those teams sometimes can be up there. I think part of the reason for that is because of their 10 games. I think another part of the reason of that is because the majority of their schedule is against their conference. So their conference plays how they play. Now, despite them playing less games, I do still think they play good defense in the Ivy League. So I'm excited to see how that defense and how their brand of ball translates to the rest of the FCS. That is also why I would love to see them play more non-conference games to see how their game translates to the rest of the FCS. But Exciting for Harvard and the Ivy League to be playoff eligible. I am excited to see who's going to make the playoffs. Who do you guys think is going to make the playoffs this year? I don't do a lot of coverage of Harvard and the Ivy League schools, so I'm going to have to guess that it would be Harvard. Whoever the media voted as the #1 preseason team, I'm going to have to trust their analysis and trust their judgment of those teams and say that Harvard is probably going to be the team. But whoever makes it, I'm going to be excited to watch and excited to see what type of brand of football they play. So exciting news there. You guys let me know what you guys think about that in the comments down below, and I will move on. Okay, I want to thank you guys so much for tapping into the channel. It's going to be a great football season. I cannot wait for football season to happen. Make sure you guys go check out some of the breakdowns that I'm going to be doing this year. Make sure you guys check out all the content that I got coming this fall season. It's going to be an exciting season for you Grizz fans for you Grizz people and Grizz fans who are in Missoula or who come to a ton of Montana games. Come check us out at the pregame, postgame show, the pregame show, GSA tailgate show. Ace, Sour Wine, Denny Bedard, myself. They have Kent Haslem up there every week, as well as Greg Sundberg, and then Riley Corcoran obviously is on there as well. So come check out the crew during the season this year. It's going to be an exciting year. Obviously, there's 8 home games this year at the University of Montana, and I will be at a majority of them. I am taking my honeymoon late in the season, so I think I may miss maybe a home game or 2. We'll see how the playoffs go. But obviously, got to take care of my wife, got to take care of my baby. So we got to take this honeymoon at some time, some point. So that will be happening. But during the regular season, please come check us out at the pregame, postgame show. It's going to be an exciting time. I'm very excited for football season this year. Make sure you guys hit the like button. Make sure you guys like every video. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. Leave me comments, questions, topics you guys want me to bring up, a player you guys want me to break down, a game you guys want me to look at. If there's ever anything like that, leave it in the comments. I'll try to get to it, add it when I can. But thank you guys so much for tapping into the channel. I appreciate the love and support. We are fast approaching 2,000 subscribers. Let's try to get to 2,000 before the regular season kicks off for Montana. So before week 2, let's try to get me to 2,000 subscribers. That would be amazing. I appreciate all the support and love. I thank you guys so much. I will catch you guys next week. See you later.